welcome back to Talk the Walk with me, Sarah Wong. I'm with Ricky Chiu, Chairman and CEO of Face Scientific International. Thank you very much, Ricky, for joining us on the program. We're just talking about how your company's diagnostic technology contributes to Hong Kong and the global fight against the pandemic. We're going to touch on the global part in this part of the program. So first of all, tell us, how did your biotechnology company gain the recognition and support of tech billionaire Bill Gates?
I think this is really originated by the work that I have achieved from my PhD thesis at UCLA, which is technologies that can improve the diagnostic accuracy and allowing a lot of normally testing that need to be done in a centralized lab to be operated at a resource poor setting, meaning in a village in Africa, or in the case of COVID, doing a home test.
Now, I also know that your company and the rapid testing kit that your company developed is the first in China, Hong Kong, in the Greater China region to gain the approval for emergency use from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Tell us, what's the biggest obstacle in getting that approval as a Hong Kong startup?
Right. The biggest obstacle is that we are a startup and we don't have millions of dollars in R&D and hundreds of thousands of people in the team to perform the R&D as well as the clinical validations. But I'm very proud that with our small team, but working very diligently and also in collaborations with the Hong Kong government, we are able to perform one of the world's largest clinical trials in the Hong Kong community and comparing over 20,000 of citizens' results with rapid antigen tests with the gold standard PCR. And I think this is one of the major reasons that we are able to convince the US FDA to grant us the emergency use authorization.
So on that note, the FDA granted the emergency use authorization based on the data produced by the clinical trials conducted in Hong Kong.
That is one part of the clinical data that we provided. But of course, the FDA would also look into the clinical trials that are performed locally in the state, because the race, the ethnicity of the clinical trials may also matter to the test performance. And that's why we have also performed 2 additional clinical trials in the city of San Francisco, as well as in the state of Florida. And that the result is very consistent with what we have obtained in Hong Kong. And I think that is definitely also helped in our application to the FDA.
Now that you have your company is headquartered in Hong Kong right now, but it also has a branch in the United States. I wonder, how do you balance the investment and research interests in the United States and China, especially during the current geopolitical environment?
Right. This is a very delicate situation politically, but I think us headquartered in Hong Kong and our team is also maintaining as the bridge where we connect the East and the West. And the fact that during the COVID pandemic, speed is everything. So we are very proud that because the fact that we have a team in the US, we have a team in Hong Kong and also in China, we can really work around the clock. And because of the pandemic situation, because of the waves, we are able to perform clinical studies in the 2 worlds. When one side has a wave, we can get enough the patient to perform clinical studies. And at the same time, we also collect data when the waves start in the other part of the region globally.
I'm very curious because you know that, well, the current US administration and the previous one, point is both of the administrations have grown increasingly wary of national security protection, and especially when it came to technology, military, and biotechnology, engineering, this scientific fields. So I wonder, have you encountered any obstacles or any challenges when you were focusing on developing such high sensitive, non-sensitive, but very important technology in the biotech field in the United States?
Right. I think there are definitely political influence in their decision making, just like everywhere else in the world. But I think because the fact that my company was originally in California, in the US, and we were funded and supported by the US government, we have a strong track record on our technologies advancement, as well as our team integrity. So I think the fact that, yes, we are a Hong Kong company, but we also allow to demonstrate, scientifically strong data to support our claim. And I think because of the pandemic situation is very bad in the United States, in some situation, the political consideration may have to step aside. And I think evidently after the approval of our products, the United States actually approved a lot more Chinese product to fulfill their marketing needs for COVID-19 testing.
Yeah, well, on that note, U.S. President Joe Biden promised 500 million rapid testing kits free of charge for all Americans. Did your company contribute to the White House's diagnostic regime, and how did it go?
Yes, we have a huge demands of supplying our kits to the U.S. government. In many states, our product is very highly sought after, and yes, we have direct communication with some of the state government and laboratories, and all we got is very strong praise and on the usability and the performance of the product.
Now let's take a look at the Asian Pacific region as well. I know that last year your company and others donated 100,000 rapid antigen testing kits to Cambodia. And that's when Hong Kong's epidemic situation was relatively stable. So are there any plans for further regional outreach right now when Hong Kong is having a hard time battling COVID?
Well, yes, I think as COVID is ramping in different locations in waves, for us as developers, as manufacturers, we can able to supply our product to different countries while they in need the most. So I think right now we have full majority of our inventory to help the Hong Kong community to battle against the pandemic. But I think before that happens, or when the Hong Kong wave subsides, we would continue to support our neighbors in the APAC regions to help with their pandemic approach. And I think not many countries locally are as lucky as Hong Kong that we also have very strong PCR testing capacity. And rapid antigen test is maybe all they have to defend the citizen against the pandemic. And that's why it's become a very important tool. Globally.
Have there any governments officially requested your company's help in providing the test kits?
Singapore is one country that we have direct communication even before they grant us the approval, and I believe that is the publication that we have based on the large clinical study that we have in Hong Kong, which is peer-reviewed journal that are being very well recognized by different regions about our product, as well as our strategies of combining PCR to provide what we call the dual track testing scheme to different places for reference.
I see. Now, I know that before the pandemic broke out, cancer diagnostics was actually the main quest of your company. And a few months ago, your company achieved a breakthrough on the front of cancer diagnostic with its, I quote, liquid-based extraction method. I wonder how would that, for us who don't know much about biotech engineering and diagnostic technology, can you explain to us how would that revolutionize our understanding and approach to the disease that for so long we can do very little about?
Right. Cancer is so deadly because whenever we are able to discover them is at a later stage. And yes. The reason is because diagnostic is the main challenge. Right now, the major traditional way of detecting cancer is by imaging or when symptoms appears. Just like COVID, when that time is become at a later stage, and that's why it takes so much effort and the success rate is so little in saving the patient. If we can detect cancer earlier, cancer may not be as deadly as it could be. And in the future, it could become a slow disease like diabetes that we can just simply manage. So now, in order to do that at an earlier stage, we can simply rely on imaging because the resolution is not high and you simply don't know where you point into your body to take your image. And this is something called a liquid biopsy, which is a very good approach where we can simply draw blood and analyze the fragments of the DNA that are existing in the blood that may indicate of cancer in our body. But the challenge is really about extracting enough of these DNA fragments and to perform a good analysis of them. Our breakthrough on our technology is that we are able to extract manifold higher amount of these fragments compared to the gold standard that has been used by the industry for the past 30 years. And this gives us a very strong confidence that we can potentially improve the applications of liquid biopsy and pushing the limits to detect cancer at an earlier stage. And that would be the major focus for my company to focus on after COVID.
I know that your dedication to cancer diagnostic was also driven by your personal experience. I wonder, did you ever regret redirecting your energy and resource to pursue COVID testing technology, while in the meantime the breakthrough on cancer diagnostics maybe could have come sooner?
I wouldn't say I would regret the decision. Of course, in a perfect world, I would like to do both cancer diagnostic and COVID diagnostics simultaneously. However, I would stand by the decision that I made to pivot into the COVID diagnostic because of the pandemic. We are able to get a lot of resources and gain a lot of revenue for us to move forward. And honestly, for cancer diagnostic, for the goal, for the mission that I want to achieve, it's going to cost a lot of money. So now, instead of raising funds by investors, which would spend a lot of my time and effort, now my time and effort can solely focusing on the R&D and the clinical application because now we have very strong resources that we gained from the COVID pandemic. And at the same time, I think the reputation that we gain can also help us as the research being successful on the cancer diagnostic to roll out, to commercialize to the citizens.
All right, Ricky Chiu, Chairman and CEO of Face Scientific International. Thank you very much today for your time speaking to Talk the Walk. We'll return next Saturday on HKIBC. I'm Sarah Wong. See you then, and good night.